Unfortunately, we meet this morning in the shadow of the Republican Speaker's continuing threat to force a catastrophic U.S. default. By the way, in the big five in the room, the President has said he doesn't want a default and wouldn't cause one. The Majority Leader has said he doesn't want a default and wouldn't cause one. Minority Leader McConnell has said he does not want a default and would not cause one. And the Democratic leader in the House has said he does not want a default and wouldn't cause one. There's only one person in that room who is threatening to default on the credit of the United States. 2 weeks ago, we looked at the House MAGA extremist demands, which would inflict widespread economic pain on the American people, mostly to extract a fossil fuel wish list. Remember, 275 out of 315 pages are fossil fuel favors. We heard unchallenged testimony from Moody's chief economist that the MAGA plan would cost the American economy almost 800,000 jobs and increase the chance of a recession. Not rebutted, not challenged, 800,000 jobs lost, and dangerously close to economic recession. This was supposedly to reduce the debt and deficits, but as we've repeatedly heard, predicted catastrophes like the 2008 banking crisis and COVID that we failed adequately to prepare for caused much of our debt. That makes the climate crash warnings so many witnesses have presented highly relevant to our debt and deficit conversation. Another major cause of our debt and deficits is the Republican fixation on giant tax cuts for big corporations and the wealthy. Together, the Bush and Trump tax cuts have added $10 trillion to the debt, and they account for 57% of the increase in debt to GDP ratio since 2001. But for those tax cuts, our debt would actually be declining as a share of the economy. Take out crisis response measures like COVID relief, and those giant tax cuts account for 90% of the increase. Under Republican presidents, there's a familiar pattern: giant tax cuts that benefit wealthy and corporate donors, and debt limit hikes. The debt limit was raised 3 times under President Trump, twice paired with spending increases. When Democrats are in charge, Republicans use debt limit threats and government shutdowns to disrupt United States government operations. The Speaker's current default threat would tip the economy into severe recession, kill nearly 1 million Americans' jobs, and put at risk the dollar as the world's reserve currency. That will blow our debt and deficits through the roof, raise interest costs for everyone, and create political upheaval, particularly when regular Americans feeling the pain see rich corporate political donors paying little or no income taxes. Republicans routinely claim that tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations pay for themselves with economic growth, and the benefits will trickle down to everyone else. That has never happened. Even the Republican witness here, former Congressional Budget Officer Director Doug Holtz-Eakin, has said that no serious economist would make such a claim. Taking care of the rich with tax favors is politics, not economics. So the beat goes on even after CBO found Trump's tax cuts boosted annual deficits to over $1 trillion. If you want another clue, the Speaker's Default on America Act increases the deficit by $120 billion by gutting IRS funding, allowing the wealthy to evade tax responsibilities, again, to the tune of $120 billion. The CBO just estimated yesterday that extending the Trump tax law, as Republicans want to do, would cost $3.5 trillion. But it takes care of big donors. Among Trump's torrent of lies, he claimed there'd be so much economic growth from his tax law that the average American household would see a $4,000 annual pay increase. Except instead of raising wages or making productive investments, corporations loaded up their CEOs and shareholders with stock buybacks. One of our witnesses today hit the nail on the head, and I'll pursue that in questioning. What Republican tax cuts achieve without fail is to increase debt and deficits and to lavish billions worth of tax breaks on wealthy donors and large corporations. Trump's tax cut was so loaded up for the rich that foreign investors enjoyed a larger windfall than the bottom 60% of Americans. Making those tax cuts permanent would send a full 40% of the new tax benefits to the top 5%. President Biden's budget would reduce the deficit by $3 trillion while leveling the playing field for American workers and small businesses. Speaker McCarthy's proposal would cut funding for law enforcement, child nutrition, and medical research, for instance, throw 1 million folks off Meals on Wheels, but protect loopholes that let billionaires pay lower tax rates than teachers and firefighters. There is a very clear choice. Our corrupted tax code should be fixed for its own sake. Removing its flagrant injustices would also help reduce our debt and deficit. That makes fairer taxes a good place to start.